friends, and welcome back to another video. So this video we're going to talk about all the fantasy series that I have yet to read and really need to get to. These are all epic fantasies, so it's all going to be kind of like that multiple POV. There's gonna be obviously twists and turns, a good world, like all kinds of stuff. At least from what what epic fantasy is. So that's what all of these are. There is one I think that is not really considered epic fantasy. It is YA, but I'm putting it in that fantasy realm just because the series is pretty long. I'm not going to talk about any series that I've started already. Like, for example, the Stormlight Archives. I've already read The Way of Kings. And so I'm going to be working through that series this year because it is, at least part one is finished. So I really want to get through all of that this year, so that is a goal of mine. But all of these that we're going to talk about today are ones that I have yet to start and really need to. So without further ado, let's get started. So the first book I want to talk about is Robin Hobb's the Farseer trilogy, and that's the Assassin's Apprentice. Now, this series is made up of multiple series in this world. This is just the first one. So I have this one, and then I have the next one, which is I think the Mad Ship of Magic. I didn't include that in today just because, like, really it's all of Robin Hobb that I need to read, this entire world. But I do have the first two trilogies. I think there is one that has 4 books in it, but most of what she is writing in this world they are trilogies, basically. I'm also going to read you all the synopsis for these books that I'm gonna talk about today, just so you kind of get an idea of what they are about. And it also refreshes my memory as well. So let's talk about the Assassin's Apprentice, the first book in Robin Hobb's world. And the synopsis is as follows. The kingdom of the 6 duchies is on the brink of civil war when news breaks that the crown prince has fathered a bastard son and is shamed into abdication. The child's name is Fitz, and he is despised. Raised in the castle stables, only the company of the king's fool, the ragged children of the lower city, and his unusual affinity with animals provide Fitz with any comfort. To be useful to the crown, Fitz is trained as an assassin, and to use the traditional magic of the Farseer family. But his tutor, allied to another political faction, is determined to discredit, even kill him. Fitz must survive, for he may be destined to save the kingdom. So it is pretty vague, but I've heard that this series follows Fitz from a very, very young age and keeps going up and up, and like he grows up in this series, right? And then when you go to Ship of Magic, you kind of go away from Fitz, but then the next series that you go to, Fitz comes back. So, I've heard Robin Hobb's writing is absolutely fantastic. She has great character development, great world building, and the pacing is really, really good as well. I've heard that some of her books are, some books are a little slower than others, but for the most part, her books are paced well. So This is definitely something I need to start. I don't know if I'm afraid to start it, because then it's like, oh crap, I really like this. I'm going to be marathoning the whole series, which would be fantastic. But her world is huge. I mean, I think you've got at least 5 series in this world, I think. So I definitely need to start this series. I need to start reading some Robin Hobb. But let me know if you've started it and what you think. The next book series I need to start, and I'm not sure when I will, but I found the first book the other day in the paperback form that I wanted. I do not want to buy these in mass market paperbacks. I absolutely hate those. But it is Steven Erikson's Garden of the Moons, the first one in the Tale of the Malazan, Book of the Fallen. I have heard fantastic things about Malazan. It is a very complex series, but worth it when you get done. Other than that, I don't know what the premise is, so I'm gonna learn that today with you when I read the synopsis. But I have these all saved in a list on Amazon, and I just found this in Barnes and Nobles the other day, and I wanted to get at least the second one, but they didn't have the second one in the floppy paperback. They had it in the mass paperback, and like I said, I hate those. Absolutely hate those. But without further ado, let's see what Malazan is about. The Malazan Empire simmers with discontent, bled dry by interminable warfare, bitter infighting, and bloody confrontations with ancient and implacable sorcerers. Even the imperial legions, long inured to the bloodshed, yearn for some respite. Yet Empress Lecine's rule remains absolute, enforced by her dreaded claw assassins. For Sergeant Whiskey Jack and his squad of bridge burners, and for Tattersail, their lone surviving mage, the aftermath of the siege of Pale should have been a time to mourn the many dead. But Dargistan, last of the free cities, yet holds out. It is to this ancient citadel that Lecine turns her predatory gaze. However, the Empire is not alone in this great game. Sinister, shadow-bound forces are gathering as the gods themselves prepare to play their hand. So, this is definitely going to be complex. And I've heard as the series goes on, it gets more and more complex. But it sounds like we've got an empire, we've got assassins, we've got sorcery, we've got a potential rebellion that's going against the empire, we've got gods, so this sounds absolutely fantastic. I really do need to try to fit it in this year to at least start. I just have so much to read. But yes, this sounds fantastic, and I can't wait to get all the other ones in the floppy paperback for my shelf. The next book, and I've already seen the TV show, and I know this series is not completed, and who knows if it ever will get completed, which I really hope it does, but I still need to read it, is George R.R. Martin's A Game of Thrones. And I'm not going to read the back of this because, to be quite honest, everybody knows what Game of Thrones is about. Now, I know how the HBO series ended is not necessarily how George R.R. Martin wants to end the series, but they had to do something because I don't know if the next book is supposed to be the final book or if there's supposed to be another one after that, but it's not finished. But I still want to read these, and it's partly because I want to see the differences between the HBO series and what actually came from George's mind. And just to see how, like, similar, if even they are, the book and the TV series, which I want to say they were pretty close because they had source material for most of the series. They just didn't have it for the ending, season 8, I think. And because there's only 5 books, but there's 8 seasons, I don't remember if the source material stopped after season 6 or season 5 or what it was. So I'm gonna like find out when I read these. But I mean, oh, and there's a map in the back. But I mean, these are all floppy paperbacks from what I bought. I really, really wanted the floppy. But I know I'm gonna like this because I absolutely love the TV show. So with this, I just need to pick it up. And I've heard that as the series gets on, you follow more and more people, and it gets very, very confusing because, like, you've got to remember where this person is and where that person is and what. There's all kinds of stuff going on, and you got to try to keep it straight. So I'm excited to read it. I'm excited to let you guys know my thoughts on it once I read it. But I don't think it'll be this year. But I do need to pick it up. The next one, and you've seen this in some recent videos of mine, but that is Joe Abercrombie's The Blade Itself series. And he's got another trilogy that is in this world that is in the future, prior to what this is. He's also got 3 standalones that are in this world. So when I start this, I'll be reading this series, and then I'll be reading the standalones, and then I'll be going into the second trilogy in this world. And Joe Abercrombie writes grim dark, and I think I've already read the synopsis of this one for you guys. Basically, it follows 3 characters. It follows, and they're all morally gray, to be honest. And I'm very excited to read this. I've heard it's absolutely fantastic, that Joe Abercrombie writes phenomenal characters. He's very character driven, which I like both. I like character driven stories and I like plot driven stories. But if you do a character driven story, it has to keep my attention. Because the plot, you know, keeps you going, and it's like, oh crap, what's gonna happen now? But with characters, it's more centered around them, and the plot kind of just goes with and through the characters. But I have a feeling I'm going to like this because I've heard Joe Abercrombie does it fantastic. And to be quite honest, if George R.R. Martin never finishes the Game of Thrones, I think Joe Abercrombie would be a fantastic candidate to finish it for him if he passes. Just because he is grim dark. And it's kind of like how they did Brandon Sanderson. Like, they asked him to finish Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time series when Robert Jordan passed away. So I think that if George doesn't get to finish a Game of Thrones, that they should ask Joe Abercrombie. And that's with me, like, voicing my opinion without reading George R.R. Martin and Joe Abercrombie. So I could be completely wrong, but knowing just the premise of a Game of Thrones and knowing that Joe Abercrombie is the King of Grimdark. I don't know. I think it would be perfect, but hopefully George finishes it. And we won't even have to figure out or decide who's gonna finish a Game of Thrones. But this one, I might start it this year. It all depends. Like, I don't know. I've got a lot, guys, obviously. But I'm excited. Next book, and this one's not really that dark, grim, epic fantasy kind of style, but I put it in here because it is a fantasy series. And I think it's the only YA, I think. But I really want to read it. And it's a 5-book series long, and I do need to pick it up soon. But it is The Bone Season by Samantha Shannon. And these are the new covers for the 10th anniversary special edition. Now I have all of them from the Broken Binding, and they're absolutely beautiful. But I've been wanting to get the Bone Season. So when I saw that they came out with new covers and the Broken Binding was running the whole series, I was like, sold. Gonna get it. But I think this is more of a urban dystopian kind of fantasy thing. So, because it takes place in the future in London. I do know that. So it's not your typical epic fantasy or anything like that, but it is a fantasy per se. It's got fantasy elements in it, but it's the only one that's slightly different from all the ones that I'm going to show in this video. But I had to show it because it is something I really need to get to. So here's the synopsis. The year is 2059. For 2 centuries, the Republic of Sion has led an oppressive campaign against unnaturalness in Europe. In London, Paige Mahoney holds a high rank in the criminal underworld. The right hand of the ruthless White Binder, Paige is a dreamwalker, a rare and formidable kind of clairvoyant. Under Sion law, she commits treason simply by breathing. When Paige is arrested for murder and thrown into captivity in Oxford, she meets the mysterious founders of Sion, who have designs on her uncommon abilities. If she is to survive and escape, Paige must use every skill at her disposal and put her trust in someone who ought to be her enemy. So, I mean, it's got fantasy elements because humans they have special abilities. But it takes place in a real city. So that's the difference. But I still wanted to show it, and I still want to read it, and it sounds fantastic. The next book, and I'm going to show you my special edition in this. I do plan to read this year. I will be picking it up sometime next month. But that is Jade City by Fonda Lee. And these are the Broken Binding special editions. They're absolutely gorgeous. They did a fantastic job. But I had the normal paperback cover, so I'm gonna read those instead of my special edition form. But if I like it like I think I will, I'm gonna keep the paperbacks, and obviously I'm gonna keep these. But still, so if you don't know, here is the synopsis of Jade City. Jade is the lifeblood of the island of Kakon. It has been mined, traded, stolen, and killed for, and for centuries, honorable green bone warriors like the Call family have used it to enhance their magical abilities and defend the island from foreign invasion. Now the war is over, and a new generation of Calls vies for control of Kakon's bustling capital city. They care about nothing but protecting their own, cornering the jade market, and defending the districts under their protection. Ancient tradition has little place in this rapidly changing nation. When a powerful new drug emerges that lets anyone, even foreigners, wield jade, the simmering tension between the Calls and the rival Ite family erupts into open violence. The outcome of this clan war will determine the fate of all Greenbones, from their grandest patriarch to the lowliest motorcycle runner on the streets, and of Kikon itself. So, you're gonna have clan families going at it. There's obviously gonna be something that has to do with this drug. There's going to be magic that is reinforced with this material called jade. So this is going to be fantastic. I already know that, but I mean, this won the Fantasy Award or something, like all three of them when they came out. So I cannot wait to start this. I'm so glad that it's going to be next month. Well, yeah, in a couple days, really. But yes, super excited. The next epic series I need to start is Promise of Blood by Brian McClellan. Pretty much all the rest of these that I'm going to show are Broken Bindings editions. Because I didn't want the video to be super long. So I just picked all my epic fantasy that I got from Broken Binding. But this one, like, the cover gives me like revolutionary time vibes. So I'm intrigued to really know what this is about. I don't remember. I read it a long time ago when I got it, but I don't remember. So I'm going to remember as I'm reading it with you guys. So here's the synopsis. It's a bloody business overthrowing a king. Field Marshal Tomas's coup against the king has sent corrupt aristocrats to the guillotine and brought bread to the starving. But he knows that the battle is just beginning, because it also provoked war with the 9 nations, internal attacks by royalist fanatics, and a greedy scramble for money and power by Tomas's supposed allies, the church, workers' unions, and mercenary forces. It's up to a few. Stretched to his limit, Tomas is relying heavily on his few remaining powder mages, including the embittered Tenail, a brilliant marksman who also happens to be his estranged son, and Adamant, a retired police inspector whose loyalty is being tested by blackmail. But when gods are involved, as attacks batter them from within and without, the credulous are whispering about omens of death and destruction. Just old peasant legends about the gods waking to walk the earth. No modern educated man believes that sort of thing, but they should. So this, I mean, I think it takes place in a revolutionary style time, but it talks about, it's got some magic in it, obviously. We're mages. It's gonna have some scheming. It's got royalty, and it's got gods. So I'm very intrigued about this one. I don't know when I'm gonna start it, but it's something I need to get to. The next series is The Bone Ships by R.J. Barker. First off, these covers are fantastic, and the whole design from Broken Binding is fantastic. But this one has all kinds of praise on the back. It's got praise from Adrian Chaskovsky, John Gwynn, Tasha Suri, and Peter McLean. So, I mean, praise for everything. I've heard it's fantastic. So let's get into the synopsis. For generations, the 100 Isles have built their ships from the bones of ancient dragons to fight an endless war. The dragons disappeared, but the battles for supremacy persisted. Now the first dragon in centuries has been spotted in far-off waters, and both sides see a chance to shift the balance of power in their favor, because whoever catches it will win not only glory, but the war. So, super simple synopsis, But obviously, it's going to be first come, first serve, whoever gets the dragon. And it's got dragons. Sold. You tell me dragons, I'm going to pick it up. So I am super excited to pick this up. Again, same thing. Don't know when I'm going to start it, but I plan to do it soon. And if you've read it already, let me know what you think. The next fantasy series is Northern Wrath. And this is, oh, it's dipped. This is part 1 of the Hanged Gods trilogy. And this is by Filled Cold Holt. I'm pretty positive I pronounced that whole thing wrong, and I am sorry. So, this one, it doesn't look like it's got a synopsis, to be quite honest. Yeah, it doesn't. I don't know what this is about, but it just looks like, based on the pictures, that this is going to be bloody. I think there's obviously, it has to be a war of some kind. I think there's gods in it, maybe. And I mean, it's fantasy. It's gotta have some type of magic. I know, I'm speculating. Partly what makes me want to read it is the cover. So yeah, I don't remember what it's about, guys. I'm sorry. But I mean, the cover is just gorgeous. The back of it says, honor the dead, remember their names, see their faces, and speak of their ways. So there's obviously faith and tradition as well in this. So it'll be a surprise for both of us. The next book is Sons of Darkness by Gruva Mahanti. I definitely pronounced that wrong. But this is the first book in a series. I don't know if it's trilogy or not. I did just pick up the second book the other day. Of course, yes, you know, I'm not reading it. I have all this series. But I will read you the synopsis of this one. Led dry by violent confrontations with the Mahajan Empire, the Maturan Republic simmers on the brink of oblivion. Senator Krishna and his third wife, Satyabhama, have put their plans in motion, both within and beyond the Republic's blood-soaked borders, to protect it from total annihilation. But they are soon to discover that neither gold nor alliances last forever, and that they are not the only players on the board. Mati, pirate princess of Kalinga, has decided to mend her ways and become a good wife. But old habits die hard, especially when one habitually uses murder to settle old scores. Brooding and beautiful Karna hopes to bury his brutal past, but finds that destiny is a miser when it comes to granting second chances. Hero turned torturer Shakuni limps through a path of daggers. Meanwhile, his foes and woes multiply, leaving little time for vengeance. Their lives are about to become yet more difficult as a cast of sinister queens, naive kings, pious assassins, and ravenous priests are converging where the Son of Darkness is prophesied to rise, even as forgotten gods prepare to play their hand. So, obviously, we've got 4 POVs, and everything at some point is going to be intertwined, and the plot's got something to do with queens, kings, assassins, priests, and a prophecy. It sounds fantastic, and I cannot wait to read it. Let me know what you think in the comments. The next series, and this one I believe was written in the 80s, but it's a classic from what I've been told, and Broken Binding had to break up the third one into 2 separate ones because how big it was. So this one yeah, I'm not sure when I'm gonna get to. It is pretty hefty. I mean, this first book, oh my goodness, and there's like a glossary in the back, and I had no idea. Oh my goodness, there's so many. There's an appendix. Okay. The first book is 916 pages. It's a big one. And I don't, oh, there is a synopsis for this one. Thank goodness. But this is The Dragon Bone Chair, the first book in the Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn series by Tad Williams. I mean, it's got a bone chair made out of dragon bones on the cover, so maybe there's dragons? I don't know. But here's the synopsis. Kitchen boy Simon is bored, restless, and 14 years old, a dangerous combination. It seems, however, that his life has just taken a turn for the better when he's apprenticed to his castle's resident wizard. As Simon learns to read and write under Dr. Morgan's tutelage, forces greater than he could possibly imagine are gathering. Forces that will change Simon's life and his world forever. Following the death of good King John, Osten Ard is plunged into civil war as his sons battle for control of the fabled Dragonbone Chair, the country's throne and symbol of its power. Simon is forced to flee the only home he has ever known, a journey that will test him beyond his worst nightmares. So it sounds like it's got the chosen one trope. And potential political scheming for this Dragonbone Chair. So I've heard it's fantastic. It's, if you like fantasy, that you have to read it. So I'm glad I have these on my shelf. And maybe 2026 will be when I read all my epic fantasy. The next book is The Wolf of Oren Yarrow, and this is the first one in the Chronicles of the Wolf Queen series by K.S. Villoso. And I mean, it sounds fantastic, really. So I think it's going to be super great. And I'm just intrigued to read all kinds of different stories, really. So here's the synopsis of this one. Born under the crumbling towers of her kingdom, Queen Talion was the shining jewel and legacy of the bloody war of the wolves. It nearly tore her nation apart, but her arranged marriage, the son of a rival clan, heralds peace. However, he suddenly disappears before their reign can begin, and the kingdom is fractured beyond repair. Years later, he sends a mysterious invitation to meet. Talion journeys across the sea in hopes of reconciling their past. An assassination attempt quickly dashes those dreams. Stranded in a land she doesn't know, with no idea who she can trust, Talion will have to embrace her namesake. Other than that, I don't know what fantastical pieces are a part of this, but I think it's going to have, obviously, action in it. I think there's going to be some lore associated to it, so I'm intrigued. And I really do hope it's good. I've heard that it's good. And I have all three, so I'll have to let you guys know what I think. The last book, and I've heard it's fantastic, and I've also heard that the author might be coming out with a fourth one. Not sure. Right now it's only a trilogy, so we'll see. But that is The Lies of Loch Lamora by Scott Lynch. And oh my gosh, I've heard if you like heist stories, that this is the one you want to read. Like, this is the all-time story of a heist. So, let's read the synopsis. The Thorn of Camor is said to be an unbeatable swordsman, a master thief, a friend to the poor, a ghost that walks through walls. Silently built and barely competent with a sword, Loch Lamora is, much to his annoyance, the fabled Thorn. And while Locke does indeed steal from the rich, who else would be worth stealing from? The poor never see a penny. All of Locke's gains are strictly for himself and his tight-knit band of thieves, the gentlemen bastards. The capricious, colorful underworld of the ancient city of Camor is the only home they've ever known. But now a clandestine war is threatening to tear it apart. Caught up in a murderous game, Locke and his friends are suddenly struggling just to stay alive. This is the first book in the Gentleman Bastards sequence. The Lies of Locke Lamora is a fast-paced, devilishly twisty epic fantasy and has become a prenatal favorite of fantasy fans everywhere. This is definitely something I need to get to this year. I'll probably throw it in Q3, Q4 potentially. But I've heard this is absolutely fantastic and I cannot wait to read it. I hope it keeps me entertained and makes me want to turn the page, and I just can't wait to review it for you guys. So those are all the fantasy books, epic-ish, that I really need to start. And I need to get to, really. But it's just, when will I get to them because of all the books that I have on my shelf? Let me know if you have read any of those books, and what your thoughts are on them. Did you like them? Did you not like them? I would absolutely love to know your thoughts. Don't forget, like, subscribe, and be good people.
When you feel it's hopeless, when you think that